So the last section we talked about the iris and how that controls how much light comes through the lens. And the next step that the light interacts with is the shutter. And what the shutter does is it allows light to actually hit your sensor. Because as you're looking through your viewfinder, you're seeing the light coming through the lens. You're seeing how much light there is. But it's the shutter that says how long that light will hit your sensor and expose to get an image. So you might have heard the term shutter speed, and what that is the number given to how quickly the shutter is actually moving. So let's say you're shooting at 1/8 a second. That's pretty fast, right? The shutter is moving up and down. But in terms of a camera, that's actually really slow. And if you're holding it handheld, you might not get a clean image. On the other hand, it's more typical to shoot closer to 1/250th of a second, 1/4000th of a second. And that's literally the shutter moving up and down that quick. So shooting at 1/8 shutter speed is allowing more light in. It's allowing your picture to be brighter as opposed to a 1/4000th shutter speed where it's a really quick shutter and you're not allowing as much light in. The other factor with this though is that as you slow down your shutter, it's possible that you'll start to get blurry images. Typically, if you're handheld, going under 1/60th of a second, your hands, it's hard to keep it steady, and you'll start to get blurred images at 1/30th or below that even. And so depending on your situation, depending on how much light there is, you change your shutter speed. You decide, oh, well, I want to shoot at an f4, so now I'm going to crank my shutter speed really high because there's a lot of light outside. Or maybe you don't have any light, and so you're making your shutter move a little bit slower, allowing more light in. It's really important that you test, that you take a few practice shots and see what you're capable of doing. Personally, I always like shooting at 1/100th. I think that's really safe. Even if something's moving quickly, it will be crisp and clean and not blurry. But sometimes you're in a low light situation and you need that slower shutter speed, and so you have to find a way to stabilize your camera and get a shot that's not too blurry. This isn't to say that you shouldn't use slow shutter speeds. There's a lot of ways that you can use it creatively and actually get some really cool effects with it. One of my favorites is seeing the car lights at night. You have these long streaks of light moving across the freeway, and this is all done with a slow shutter speed. But ultimately you have to test. You have to go see what 1/30th looks like. What does a 1-second exposure look like? What does a 30-second exposure look like? And this is the best way to go and see this for yourself.